welcome and thank you so much to our attendees. I really appreciate you joining us today to discuss the Chinatown International District Place-Based Group opportunity. I want to do a quick introduction. My name is Alberta, she, her pronouns, and I work as a transit-oriented development strategist at the Office of Planning and Community Development. I want to introduce my colleague, Jess, who can't join us today, but she works very closely with me on our Equitable Transit-Oriented Development program. She is our Inclusive Growth Planner at OPCD. And then I'll pass to my colleague, Catherine.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Catherine Blair, she, her pronouns. I am the Senior Grants Administrator here at the city with Alberta.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Patty Julio. I am a community development consultant and outside consultant to the City of Seattle, and I have a small business, Julio Consulting, LLC.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Chantel Rice, and I'm an affordable housing development consultant, and I will be working alongside Patty and the OPCD office on this project.
Thank you both. We're lucky to have them on our team. So I'm just going to quickly go over the project background at a high level and spend some time on the solicitation so we can leave a lot of time for Q&A. So our agenda, we're going to talk about the project purpose and background, the place-based group participation role, scope, and submittal requirements, and then we'll do our Q&A. The context and opportunity for this work originates in a grant the city received 5 years ago in 2020 to address equitable development along the West Seattle and Ballard Link extensions by centering community leadership and addressing station access, remnant parcels, and equitable development outcomes. We at OPCD identified 2 neighborhoods at highest displacement risk on the new light rail alignments, Delridge and Chinatown-International District. So just to touch on the overarching process of our Equitable Transit-Oriented Development Grant, the outcome of the grant is to develop an Equitable Transit-Oriented Development, or ETOD, strategy and implementation plan with implications for station area planning and community investments. Another critical outcome of this grant is the process itself. The process is summarized in our participation solicitation document and was co-developed with a group of core community stakeholders. The grant outcomes do focus on the whole Ballard and West Seattle Link extension alignments, but they also emphasize places with historic disinvestment and high displacement risk. And we acknowledge that in these areas, we need to be more nuanced and follow community leadership. The Chinatown International District Place-Based Group is a core stakeholder group for this process. And the goal and outcome of the CID Place-Based Group is to generate, with our consultants, a CID financial investment strategy that represents the neighborhood-specific contribution to the overall ETOD strategy and implementation plan. So just to outline the role of the participants in the CID Place-Based Group. So participants will participate in 2 to 4 group meetings with the entire place-based group and the technical consultant, and will also hold individual meetings with the consultant to further define their project and determine how to advance it. So we expect 8 to 10 meetings total over the course of the next year or once the group is brought together, including several group meetings and individualized meetings with the consultant. We also expect that the community-based organizations and individuals involved as participants will be advancing the project outside of the meeting times and gathering relevant information to support our technical consultants' analysis. So we wanted to outline what potential projects look like that are eligible to participate in this process. So some examples include your community has an idea for a new development or community preservation project, and you want help getting it off the ground. Or your organization owns property that you would like to redevelop or renovate, and you would like to assess the development opportunities and considerations. Or you're well into development and you have a financial gap. The consultant can help raise visibility of the project and fundraising and coordinate for fundraising and coordination purposes. And it's important for us to note that projects for the CAD Play-Space group will be selected regardless of the final station location selected by Sound Transit for the Ballard Link extension. Here is our RFP timeline. I want to provide the caveat that we expect to extend the response deadline due to some internal processes which have been delaying some additional outreach we were intending to do. So I can say at this point, the response deadline will very likely be extended from October 24th to 1 to 2 weeks after that. And we will publish that on the website as well where this posting is. Also, we do want to mention there are no minimum qualifications required to submit a proposal response. That being said, we are going to be looking for participants being able to demonstrate that their proposed projects are already being discussed in the community and have existing community support. So that can mean a lot of things. It can mean it's in a community plan, it's part of a conversation around public investments in transit and other infrastructure, or in your organization's strategic plans. Here are the proposal response questions which you're requesting as part of this application process. So the first one is describe how your community was involved in designing or prioritizing this project. What work have you completed to date? What are you hoping to get out of working with the development consultant team? The third question is describe your organization's role in the Chinatown-International District neighborhood, specifically with communities at high risk of displacement. And last, how would you share information about this process back to your organization or community formation? Our scoring criteria are as follows. The community involvement in the design and prioritization has 20 possible points. The organization's role in the CID, 20, and sharing information about this process back to your org or community, 20, for a total of 60 points. Okay, now I'm going to pass to my colleague Catherine to briefly address the compliance documentation.
Yes, hi everyone. So in addition to the proposal questions that Alberta just walked through, the other thing that needs to be submitted is sort of a suite of forms that need to be submitted. They contain both federal requirements as well as city requirements that help us ensure responsibility before funding goes out. So you'll see that on the website. There's a link that says fill out the required federal forms. So those federal forms, that sort of packet is required along with the proposal, the responses to the proposal questions. There's an additional form for if you've done any lobbying that needs to be disclosed. And then the other thing that's on the website, just for your reference, is what the eventual agreement will look like for any people who are selected for this. So you can review the terms and conditions, have an idea of what will be required in the actual contract that gets signed. Lastly, I also just want to state that the city follows Title VI of the Civil Rights Act and as well as the Equal Employment Opportunity Act. We can provide these materials in other formats if they're necessary. And I'm happy to answer any questions about any of those requirements too and what exactly is needed.
Thank you, Catherine. And now we are at our last slide and we welcome questions. Yeah, questions from our attendees.
Some questions in the chat earlier is where can the projects be located? In the CID neighborhood boundaries only? Question mark.
Great question. I'm going to repeat the question just so everyone hears it. The question is, where can the projects be located within the boundaries of the CID neighborhood? We have very purposefully not defined a geographic boundary because it's important to our team that the CID is defined as community defines it, not the city. So if you identify as an organization that works in and around the CID, I would really encourage you to apply. And if the project team has questions, we will follow up with you. But I would think of the boundaries broadly, not narrowly. Great question, Pepe.
Thank you. I'm reading more questions from the chat.
Thank you.
So what if we don't have funding yet for our project? Can we get funding for our project if we participate in this place-based group?
Such a great question. So the question is, if the project doesn't yet have funding, can funding be acquired through participation in the CID place-based group? I would say this place-based group will open doors to opportunities to identify potential funding, but as a group, we do not have funding for implementation of these projects per se. Our FTA, Federal Transit Administration grant, funds participation in the place-based group, which is a flat $75 per hour per organization, per participant, I would say per capital project. But we do not have implementation funding for the projects themselves. That's a very key point. That being said, I think being included in the CID financial investment strategy, which is the goal from this process, opens doors for funding from a variety of sources to additional funds for your project. But we at the city cannot promise implementation funding now.
Thank you. And this next question, I think you answered a little bit of it. How does this place-based group support the community work that I've already done over the past few years? And the second part is, what projects are not eligible?
I would say we work in the CID, involvement in the CID is a core component of this process. That being said, the specific goal of this project, this process, is to advance capital and placekeeping projects in the CID. So it is physical, on-the-ground projects that we are hoping to support through this work. So if you've been doing work in the CID that is related to a capital project, such as an affordable housing project or a preservation project or public art or any other type of on-the-ground, neighborhood-specific development project, we are here to support that. And then, Pepe, can you repeat part B of that question?
Part B is the flip side, is what projects are not eligible?
What projects are not eligible? I can say off the top of my head, you know, the financial investment strategy likely wouldn't include funds that are used for operating budgets, for instance. This is not an operating type of opportunity. It's physical, built capital or placekeeping projects. What other good examples of projects that aren't eligible? I would say advocacy, political advocacy. We can't fund advocacy for specific policies per se, unless the policy was about creating potentially a community land trust in the CID. That might be an eligible project, but if it's about like another type of policy that isn't related to the built environment, I would say that would not be eligible. Any other ideas?
How about historic preservation of a building?
Yes, very much so. We would encourage that type of project to apply. We know there's a lot of historic assets in the CID. Patty.
Yes, what about community events, community convenings?
Yeah, I would say, yeah, community events and convenings, activations, engagements are not what we're really focusing on here, because our goal is to end up with physical built projects. Those are very important, and I think there are other opportunities to find funding within the city for those events, activations, and meetings. But the goal of this process specifically is a financial investment strategy for built environment projects.
Thank you. Another question. Who is on the decision-making team for this RFP process?
Thank you. So the decision-making team, the evaluation committee, is going to be made up of our team members, Tiernan Martin, who is on this call, Soka Dawn, who is part of the City of Seattle's Department of Neighborhoods and works very closely in the CID, as does Tiernan, and our colleague Jess Ramirez, who I introduced at the beginning, our Inclusive Growth Planner at OPCD. Those will be the folks on the evaluation committee who will be scoring and making decisions. Thank you, Pepe.
No problem. I'm going to ask another question. I plan to apply. How much time do you think I should set aside to start that application process and gathering my materials?
how much time should it take? I think we made the application process relatively straightforward with the goal of making sure it's not a burdensome lift for folks who are already doing really important, very difficult work in the neighborhood. But I would give yourself, if it were me, to answer the 3 questions and then maybe get some review from colleagues or peers or others who are engaged, I would probably give it 2 to 3 hours total. The goal is not that we get long narrative explanations. It's more just documenting the community support for the project, the history of the project, and your goals for the project, and making sure it's a good fit for the opportunity. So, yeah.
Okay, thank you. That actually
Can
helps.
sorry, Pepe, can I add one more
Yes,
thing?
Catherine.
Yes.
Some of the additional federal forms that are required might take a little bit longer to go through. They're pretty comprehensive. And again, the reason for that is it's a requirement that we have to follow to ensure funding is going out to just make sure we know where the funding is going out to. That's a fairly substantive document, so I would make sure that you spend some time reading through that. Contact Alberta with any questions, and Alberta and I will work together on answering that to make sure you understand what's being asked, and again, what the any requirements are. And just because it's again a federal grant funded project, we have a couple of extra requirements that we have to meet for federal funding. So that might add a little bit of time too.
Okay, thank you. And thank you for being available to answer questions on this federal forms. Here's another question in the chat. I'm not sure if my project will score high points. Can I call you or talk more about my project before the deadline?
Great question. Catherine, do you see any red flags with that?
Yeah, we probably can't give guidance on specific projects and their competitiveness. You can certainly submit questions to Alberta via email that are sort of general, and we're going to compile all of those and post them on the website so that everyone sort of sees the same information. So you can ask sort of general questions, but we can't advise on specific projects.
Thank you. Can you provide a little bit more information about how the meetings will be structured and what the difference will be between the individual and group sessions?
Yes, Gemma, thank you for that question. So the intention with this group is that you get individual support from our CID technical consultants, Patty and Chantel, who are experts in getting moving projects, community serving projects forward. We know that in the city of Seattle and across the country, frankly, it is very difficult to complete a lot of these built environment projects that are driven by a community goal rather than other types of outcomes. So the goal for the individual meetings is Patty and Chantel will want to understand your project, what the goals of the project are, the parameters, your funding sources, permitting, et cetera, and really get into the weeds on how to advance your project to the next phase, be it environmental review, a building survey, and there are so many different types of challenges that exist through the development process. So that is what it is. It's like in a sense, a development consultant type relationship, even though they're not your permanent dedicated development consultant. They can help you begin the process of identifying what you need to know to move your project forward. Then there's the bigger goal of bringing this whole group together, which is we know that there are challenges developing community serving projects in the Chinatown-International District. We expect that there are neighborhood specific challenges and obstacles. And the goal in getting the group together is to have discussions that give light to what those challenges are. What are the neighborhood specific development obstacles, and what are the opportunities to address those and open doorways to make community development easier in this neighborhood? And to discuss those, diagnose the challenges, create some potential solutions that can be included in the eventual ETOD strategy and implementation plan. And that could be, neighborhood specific policies with the city. We know there's the International District Special Review District, ISRD, body that works in the CID out of Department of Neighborhoods. There's a lot of efforts at the city focused on the CID right now, and how can we make sure city policies are supporting these community-based project serving outcomes. So it's the individual development support as well as the broader identifying obstacles to community development and discussing potential solutions as a group. Great question.
Thank you. Oh, another question. Are research projects eligible? I understand that policy change or recommendations are, but what else?
Great question. So I would just caveat that policy change recommendations as part of this group would need to be specific to, again, the built environment. So if the research project has an implication on the built environment, then I would say, yes, it is eligible. I think, you know, this is a complex and nuanced conversation, and we are going to take proposals and review them and try to include as many projects as possible. That is the intent of the project team. The intent is to bring people in, not exclude. That being said, we do need to draw a line to be using our technical consultants' expertise to the greatest degree possible, create the most space to advance capital placekeeping projects, which is the intent of this work. So I would say if the research is related to a built environment policy, such as community land trusts or a cooperative, but policies that would support eventual construction of projects, that is eligible. If the research project is not related to building or development or the built environment, I would say we would likely point you in a different direction.
Okay.
Patty,
Thank you.
thank you.
That's the end of the current questions. Are there any questions from the group that they want to add to the chat or verbally? Please feel free.
Yes, I have a question. Alberta, could you just explain, you mentioned in your presentation that projects that get selected are selected regardless of where the light rail station will ultimately be located. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yes. Thank you for clarifying, Patty. So currently the Ballard Link extension includes a station alignment within the Chinatown-International District. But that being said, we're still waiting for the environmental review process that Sound Transit is going through, as well as several other planning and cost estimating projects with Sound Transit. So, you know, there already is a station in Chinatown International District. So these questions are salient, regardless, regardless of where the new station, where or if the new station is. But we just didn't want to tie these projects to a specific station location because we acknowledge that these projects are critical to the neighborhood, regardless of where the station goes, to ensure that, you know, the community feels self-determination in building and owning these projects in the context of this major light rail expansion. But, you know, there is a lot of conversation about where the eventual station will go. There's a lot of differing opinions in the community about where the station should go, all valid. These projects are intended to, we would like to support them regardless of where the station goes, understanding that the built environment in the CID requires these types of community serving uses no matter where the light rail station is.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, seeing no other questions, again, want to thank you so much for joining us today. And as I mentioned, we will be posting this recording to our Equitable TOD website where the CID place-based group informal solicitation is posted. We will be issuing a addendum in the form of a frequently asked questions document to document the questions asked today. So folks can see that in writing as well. It is complex, it's not simple, but we are really excited to bring this group together. So on behalf of all of us at OPCD on this call and Patty and Chantel, thank you. And we look forward to your proposals.